Hey y'all, and welcome to Politabrawl. My name is Brian, and the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights just roasts Adam Schiff, even though he's the one that is asking the questions. Let's dive in.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Dhillon, you recently announced that DOJ was launching an investigation into the University of California over its UC 2030 capacity plan, which notes that future growth of faculty and students should result in campus populations that better reflect and tap the talent of underrepresented populations who represent the majority of Californians. In the SFFA versus Harvard opinion, the Supreme Court held that nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise, allowing universities to continue assessing students' experience with race on an individualized basis. In that opinion, in his concurrence, Justice Thomas praised the University of California for achieving diversity through race-neutral policies, including preferences for low-income applicants and first-generation students, and recruiting efforts targeted at areas with substantial populations of people of color. Are the race-neutral policies like those used by University of California, which Justice Thomas explicitly praised in that opinion, now considered by you to be illegal DEI?
Well, Senator, first of all, the investigation that we've opened is an investigation, and it's an investigation into the hiring policies of the University of California system, not the admissions policies. That said, I have absolutely seen abuses in the admissions policies in using race as a crude proxy for discrimination.
That's not the question I asked you. Are the race-neutral policies praised by Justice Thomas now considered by you to be illegal DEI?
I think you're mixing apples and oranges, so I can't really answer your question.
You can answer my question and say, yes, they are now illegal. That is what Justice Thomas praised in terms of race-neutral policies, which include preferences for low-income applicants, first-generation students, things like that. Are you now saying that what Justice Thomas praised is now illegal in your view?
Senator, there's a difference between what you see on paper and what you see in reality, and I reject your premise.
I'm not asking you about particular.
I reject your premise that how California describes its admissions practices is
about whether
reality.
you subscribe to the Supreme Court's opinion or whether you disagree with Justice Thomas' concurrence. You can answer that question, can't you?
In the abstract, yes. In reality, what you're describing does not exist in the UC system.
Okay, so Justice Thomas got it wrong. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that.
Well, you are saying that because he was praising the policies of the University of California. You seem to be saying now that any university that gives a preference to low-income applicants is engaged in illegal DEI, or if they put a focus on first-generation students, that's somehow impermissible. After all the years of criticism of cancel culture, you seem to want to cancel any institution that has views that you disagree with. In answer to the questions about law firms, you want to cancel law firms because they take on unpopular clients to you, to the administration. That is, if a firm represents someone with an adverse interest to the administration, which is their First Amendment right to do, and I would also say their duty to do, you would cancel them. You would cancel universities like Harvard or the University of Virginia that take positions and exercise their First Amendment rights contrary to what you think the administration wants to see. You would cancel the Associated Press for not using the ridiculous nomenclature of the Gulf of America. You're canceling now the Wall Street Journal because the Wall Street Journal had the audacity to publish an article about Trump's connections to Jeffrey Epstein. So this is what's going on in this administration. You've devastated the Civil Rights Division. Hundreds of attorneys, 368, have departed since January of this year. There's been a mass exodus from the Civil Rights Department. It is just a shell of what it used to be. They're being canceled. They're being canceled by you, by the department. Anyone that stands up to this president is at risk of being canceled. And I think what you're doing to use the sledgehammer of federal funding with universities to try to coerce them to accepting your right-wing agenda is disgraceful, and using that cudgel will have far-reaching implications, attacking research done by universities, academic independence done by universities. It will establish a dangerous precedent that can be abused by a president of any party, and we should recognize that on a bipartisan basis, even though it does not appear that we do. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy.
Good grief. Adam Schiff's whole argument is essentially, look, I made a mud pie, and I'm going to serve it as chocolate cake. No one's going to eat that. No one's buying that. No one looks at his argument and goes, that's logically consistent. But his supporters will eat it up because, for some reason, California thought it's a good idea to elect a man who got caught hawking a fake story, a dossier that tied Trump to Russia that, as it turns out, came from Barack Obama himself. Only in California can someone fail that far forward. And I guess that's why Kamala Harris got as far as she did. This is an absurd argument. To quote Clarence Thomas when he's talking about the issue of admissions, even though I disagree with Clarence Thomas on that. I do not think that you are allowed, if you are receiving federal funding, you should not be allowed to discriminate based on race. As a matter of fact, that got settled in the Supreme Court, by the way, and it found that a whole lot of those practices should be considered illegal. Yeah. Smart move, Adam Schiff. Absolutely brilliant. Good grief. And Harmeet Dhillon, who is the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, is rightfully looking into all these issues and finding, turns out we actually do discriminate in our schools, and that's a problem. Turns out that, hey, we might need to reconsider funding these places because, guess what? It's a problem. And Adam Schiff is turning around an argument made in one area and try to apply it in something completely different. And then he accuses her of arguing the differences between apples and oranges. What a disgrace to the idea of logic and reasoning. And he has to take that position because for some insipid reason, in clown world, again, this is the mud pie being served as chocolate cake here, Adam Schiff and his supporters think that that makes total sense. These are the kind of children that you know have a couple of screws loose in the kindergarten, and you have to make sure that they're not doing something weird on the playground because, again, they're making mud pies and calling it chocolate cake and then eating it. This is so weird. This is just beyond bizarre. If Adam Schiff was in a court of law making this argument, not only would I give a quick objection, not only would I be sustained, but the judge would take one look at Adam Schiff and said, you're on thin ice because that makes no sense. He'd get laughed out of court. I really need to look into how he got elected to begin with because only a Democrat with these ridiculous rich white liberals who have this beyond nonsensical mentality that they are truly the gatekeepers of truth and justice. When reality is, they're the gatekeepers to nonsense and clown world. And then the reality is, Harmeet Dhillon here is actually talking about major issues inside of our system that is making it worse for the American education system. We currently have I think the president of the University of Virginia, funny how he got sort of mentioned here in this video, but I think he got caught openly supporting the idea that they turn away certain students based on their race. You can guess which race and which way it goes. These university systems have been completely and totally captured by Marxist, cultural Marxists who are weirdly materialistic, nihilistic. They don't understand how the world works, and therefore they want to remake the world so it does. The people that run our education system, unfortunately, do know what they're doing. While they believe in these insipid double standards, they are continuing and consciously making these terrible decisions that hurt our students, that hurt our future. And these problems had gone all the way down, even into our pre-K systems. And I know I'm getting off in the weeds, but that's what this whole argument is about. They're talking about the education system. They're talking about potentially illegal hiring practices that we can't really prove as illegal, but we do know it happens. We do know it's morally wrong, and it flies in the very face of laws we have on the books. The whole point of the civil rights legislation in the 1960s and the whole point of the 14th Amendment in the 1860s, really the 60s keep on getting brought up in American history. Because the 1760s, with the 7 Years' War, or as we call it, the French and Indian War, man, I can't wait for the 2060s. I'm joking. I don't want to see what that happens. But we have these pieces of legislation that are supposed to guarantee basic rights for people, that you cannot discriminate based on the ideals, on the genetic makeup of race. And it's not a fair thing to do. And based on sheer logic, that's not a fair thing to do. And yet Adam Schiff is out here supporting a literal segregation-style movement. It is absolutely bizarre. But I think that's how far gone mentally the left has become here in America. It is just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And at a certain point, we're going to have to take away the money supply. We're going to have to make some changes. We're going to have to take away the hose so these kids, these mentally deficient people, cannot continue to make mud pies and sell it to us as chocolate cake. Okay? That's what they're doing. And we can't stand for that anymore. All right? This isn't the time when you're parenting, you're with your kids, and they're making you Play-Doh spaghetti, and you're faking like you're eating it. We can't do that anymore because these people are adults. They're not children. They know exactly what they're doing. They know their arguments are bad. And they know by talking about Clarence Thomas, as if Adam Schiff wouldn't try to impeach him if he got the chance. Really, you're going to bring up Clarence Thomas? That's not the smartest move, buddy. And that's what the Democrats are going to do, time and time again. Again, folks, it's someone making a mud pie and trying to argue it's chocolate cake. And Harmeet Dhillon is just not here for it. She's not standing for it, and neither should we. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoy that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Till then, y'all have a good one.